What's up? Welcome to episode number 144 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choit. If you're new here, what I do is interview people from all walks of life, most often comedians, other entertainment types, creative types about their lives and careers. The conversation is casual, but I also ask everyone to highlight the people they love, who they admire, who've influenced them, inspired them, and or supported them. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. It's at People We Love Podcast on Instagram. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Please like and subscribe on YouTube as well. I am at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter. If you'd like to follow me, adamchoit.com for all my other links, info, links to my other podcast. I also have a comedy show upcoming that I produce out here in LA. Chrissy Mayer, Lila Hart, and Keanu Thompson are going to be performing at my next show, September 8th and 9th. It's going to be 2 shows. Tickets to that are available at adamchoit.com if you're going to be in the Southern California area then. But for today's episode of this podcast, we have Aledo, Illinois' own podcast host, musician, entrepreneur, and much more, Dan Smotz. Growing up with a pastor dad, it wasn't too long before Dan went from being pretty sheltered to being into all sorts of secular music, tattoos, and conspiracy theories. We cover a lot, and we cover the many hats Dan has worn over the years and talk about his political journey and the creation of The System Is Down podcast. He also tells me all about the very special relationship he has with his high school bandmates in the Dawn Retreat, who he recently reunited with as they celebrate their recent release of a new album, Crown of Horns. So let's just get started. Here's Dan Smotz. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Dan Smotz. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Adam. Thanks for having me finally. I know it's been a long trek to get to this point of having this conversation.
You know, it's funny. Most people give up at some point. And for some reason, I was just like, nah, I'm going to keep bothering. And it's not that I felt that you should feel obligated or anything. It's not like that. I just, for some reason, I'm like, I want to keep pursuing this because this fucking dude makes me laugh, and I appreciate his content and my coughing. I'm sure you appreciate and all that.
I appreciate all of it. I appreciate your dedication to constantly badgering me until I came on. It wasn't for a lack of interest in coming on. It was just for a lack of time during a very busy summer and season. But yeah, I'm glad we could finally make it work out, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I get that totally. How you holding up during whatever year this is?
Busy. Good, busy, and yeah, mostly just I've got a mountain of work that I'm working through on video edits, and I've got a bunch of political stuff coming down the pipe. So I'm trying to get through some of last year's work a little bit, caught up on that before another mountain comes along. So doing what we can.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all that. But I'm just curious, what are the video things that you're editing right now? Just freelance clients, you do weddings, you're doing political stuff, you're doing creative. What is the range of things you're working on currently right now?
The main thing is always weddings. That's the main source of income. Like during the political season, during campaign season, it kind of shifts over to weddings take a bit of a backseat, and I do more of those. But the political stuff is only once every 2 years at most, maybe once every 4 years typically. But so this will be basically my second big political season coming up. But yeah, generally it's your weddings and occasionally little ads and things for podcasts and stuff like that, but weddings are the main source.
I got you. Well, why don't we get into it? We'll get into your life. Why don't you tell me where you grew up and family stuff and earliest memories. I sometimes ask people. I don't know all that much about you. I know more what you do, I think, than not who you are, but maybe more who you were. I Google people's bio. I'm like, I know everything about this person's career, but I don't know where the hell they're from or any of this kind of stuff. So I'll give you the floor and we'll go from there.
I grew up here. I grew up about, 3 miles away from where I'm sitting right now, in a small town called Aledo, Illinois. And after growing up, I moved away for several years, but eventually came back to be closer to family and convenience. And it's a great little town. It's like a town of 3,500, so it's just big enough that we've got like a Walmart and two stoplights, but it's small enough that other than the occasional drunken asshole in the road or whatever, like very occasional, very um, sparse, an asshole here or a meth head there. Other than that, it's like Gilmore Girls. Very small town. Kids can walk, run around, and play, and not have to worry about them. So it's a good place.
What is the nearest major city? How far is it from Chicago? Chicago or something is the closest?
About 3 hours from Chicago. The Quad Cities area, right on the border of Illinois and Iowa, is the closest, like bigger cities. Davenport, Moline. It's a little cluster of cities right there. So,
Gotcha. You got siblings. What are the earliest memories of growing up in this small town?
I have two siblings. I'm the youngest of three, and I have an older brother and the eldest is my sister. And um, earliest memories, I don't know. Like, my dad was a pastor, so I've got a lot of memories of working, like not even just being in church, even though I was in church all the time, but more so like I had access to the little church building that was like 2 blocks away from our house. So I would go over there, write music, work on stuff, um, work on video projects, just dicking around like a kid. But I had this space that I could utilize for some unique things. It was never anything amazing or anything, but those are some of my memories: writing music and making videos and shit. Still
That's
doing it
cool.
now.
That's right. I do remember you talking about on some podcast, and probably your own, that your dad is a pastor. What's that like? That's a very broad question, but
It
like
sucked.
to is it two different people? Is pastor at home and dad at church? Does that become a thing? Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. I think that he was the same, both. I don't think he was fake. And he is not a pastor anymore. Like he stopped pastoring while I was still living at home. So it's been quite a while that he hasn't been a pastor. But yeah, it was weird. It was I would say that we were pretty sheltered. And I'm sure a lot of people would say that I shelter my kids as well. So it is what it is. But um there were things. It was very fundamentalist in a lot of ways, and a lot of fear of hell and all those fun things. But yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And like I've talked about it on my show quite a bit. Just like my dad in particular, his dad was a pastor too, who was much more staunchly conservative than he even was. So I give my dad a lot of grace because he was like working with a dad that was even more staunchly overbearing, and then he was pretty staunchly overbearing, but not quite as bad as his dad was. And my dad eventually let me listen to like rock and roll music and do devil things, like I don't know, listen to people who have tattoos and all those fun things. So
And you
yeah.
have those yourself now.
Oh yes, I do. And yeah, I mean, even while I was at home, there was a point where he started coming around to like some of the music that I was into, and he took us to shows and stuff like that, and he supported my bands in the early years when we got started. So it wasn't like I had a bad relationship with my dad. It was that there was some held over things that my dad was still holding on to, and it took some back and forth before it got to a point where I don't know if he caved on his principles or grew on his principles, but he came around to, yeah, not everything that is fun in the world is evil, which was nice.
I was going to ask what it was. I was going to say like relaxing some more culturally conservative ideas. Sure. And I guess you became like less religious or whatever like later in your life, like, but like what's that like sort of journey been like?
I did become less religious for a good while. I don't even know when. Like it wasn't like, I would say that I got pretty darn close to agnostic, at least, if not atheist. But like, I mostly just didn't care at some point, and kind of just whatever. Like, still had kids, still had family, and all that. So taking them to church, going through the motions. Because at that time, when I was less into it, I was like, even I like even if I don't believe the things that my kids are learning here, they are in a very good church, in a very good, safe environment where these people are like family to me, and people who are older and wiser than me. And I'll probably come back around at some point. And like, I don't want to push my own theology on the kids, whether it is Christianity or being against Christianity, as I kind of was at one point in my life. I'm like, I'm open-minded here. I've always tried to be like, show me the evidence and I'm with you. Let's go. Like, um, all I care about is truth, really. And I've started coming back a lot more around on the spirituality thing and the Christianity thing, and I'm more into it now than probably ever. But in a completely different way of just like, you know, something starting to reveal itself to me. I didn't ask for it, wasn't looking for it, but I never wanted it to be the faith of my father or anything even remotely resembling that. But if it's true, it's true, and I'm not going to fight it. So I'm open minded, and God shows up when you are patient enough to see.
I can't help but like think about that pipeline from your grandfather to your father to you, and how each person has become in some regards less culturally conservative and has almost probably gone. I wonder if your grandfather went on a similar journey. Did he loosen up for his by his
Right.
day's standards when he got older? But I feel like despite your tattoos and interest in music and radical politics and being and your interest in conspiracy theories and all sorts of outsider reviews, you're still kind of like your dad and your grandpa. Like you're kind I you still do kind of like, I don't know, I just kind of like see what you're describing about them kind of maybe in you and how you take care of your kids and really what your values are. That's what, like, if you can, people can like rock music and have even outsidery political views, so to speak, but like I think values is I don't know, maybe that defines someone. I'm kind of thinking as forming the thoughts
Yeah.
as we speak. We can jump around. I
I
want to know
mean,
more. But yeah, go
all
on.
three of us, me, my dad, and my grandpa, and whatever came before him. Like, I didn't know that much about my grandpa, but I give these people grace and the benefit of the doubt. Like, I can disagree with them all day long on certain things, but it's like I I do believe that they were both doing their best to live their best life and be what they were created to be in the world. And I don't know if they quite pulled it off, but I'm not convinced that I'm going to pull it off either. We're all just doing our best, and yeah.
So you take your kids to like some kind of non-denominational type service? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a vineyard church, so I'm not really sure what you'd call it. I call it the junk drawer of churches. It's like pretty radical minded, like radically just human people, very authentic, very welcoming and open minded to people that have differing views, but I mean they have their beliefs and they hold them very strongly. They're not like just watering it down to be palatable, but at the same time, they're not scared of the questions and the humanity, which is the biggest issue that I had with the churches that I was familiar with growing up. It seemed like there was a level of humanity missing from the entire idea, which seems like if there is a all divine creator that created us as he chose, our humanity would be it would be much less evil and more you know good than we tend to give ourselves credit for. I think people have more value than the churches of old were willing to admit, so to speak.
Yeah, interesting. God probably prefers the latter and your new direction.
Yeah, I
It's like
mean, if there's a God that's scared of my questions, then is he a God worth serving? Like, if he made my brain and gave my brain the ability to come up with these questions, and like he's scared of me asking those questions, then why would I worship that?
you can't trigger God.
Right.
I don't think. I don't know. What do you remember from like elementary school age? We're going to jump around a little bit, but like what
Mhm.
kind of kid were you? You said you were like into video and got into music, but tell me kind of like what you did. You go to public school or what
I was
back in the
homeschooled
day?
till second grade. Since I was the youngest, they were going to keep homeschooling me, but I fought to be public schooled, and that was dumb. We all learned eventually, but
Despite everything you just said about your religious background
I
and
still would have
question,
chosen homeschool.
you're
Yeah.
still choosing the homeschool.
Yes, that would have been better. Yeah, I love my parents, and my mom did great homeschooling us. But because I was the youngest, I fought to go in at the same time as everybody else going in. So I went in second grade and was public school the rest of the way. When I went in second grade, I was like way ahead of everybody, and then I kind of, I mean, I kept good grades and was just like I don't know, nerdy introvert kid that nobody really talked to, like making art by himself and didn't have a whole lot of friends. But it is what it is. Yeah, if what was I gonna say? I don't know, whatever.
Holmes, how just tell me what kind of kid you were in elementary school, and if you went, and like, tell me what
Yeah,
public school was like.
I
Why?
eventually leveled out and stopped trying because I realized that it was all meaningless. That was around high school that I was kind of like I wasn't doing bad. I was still getting good grades. I just stopped caring about whether it was an A or a B or a C or whatever, because it's, especially looking back on it now, it's weird to think about the idea that all of our grades from elementary school through junior high meant absolutely nothing, and we're all like, they're all null and void by the time you get to high school. So it's like, so
That's when I did the best, though.
right, that's when I was trying. But
Yeah, I know. Well, no, I never tried that hard, but it's
sure.
when it was easier.
Yeah, public school's dumb. Don't put your kids in school. That's the lesson.
Is that, I mean, other than like me knowing you and what your overall probably general worldview is on government and government schools and all that, what was it specifically about your experience besides like maybe the grades thing that turned you off to the overall experience, or did you not realize that until even later in life?
I don't know if I realized at the time, but it was definitely like a tremendous amount of wasted time, a tremendous amount of wasted energy and effort, and like stress, the stress that kids have in public school, just being in this environment with people that they're only lumped together because they're the same size as each other and they're supposed to be friends, and half of them are shitbags because they're high schoolers and junior hires and they're terrible people. So like forcing junior high age kids to be around each other all day, every day in an environment where they're already stressed and annoyed by the fact that they have a test coming up and they can't get their locker combination figured out. Like all these added stressors that we put on puberty, like the most stressful time in a person's life, the time where nothing makes sense. We put all this other stuff on it that doesn't need to be, just to teach your kid how to read and write, and waste like 90% of their childhood just pushing them through a mill to get them to have the right test scores.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard a lot of the not, they're not arguments, but they, some in some regard they are arguments, like thoughts about public school. But even just hearing you go through that and talk about your experience a little bit, I feel like there's other things that I don't even think about, that I'm like, oh yeah, that's another reason why public school really sucks. Oh yeah, that that too. It's like, oh man, yeah, no, you're so right. And then it's making me feel better about my overall experience in public school, and be like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's like, I've heard other podcasters and people talk about, on shows, say how like that's the worst place you should put a child and an adolescent and a teen, is spending the majority of their time with people their same age.
Right.
They need to be spending time with people who are older, who can mentor them into how to become an adult and how to be a useful, skilled person. And skilled could mean many
Right.
things, but you want to probably develop skills, emotional, physical, spiritual skills, work skills, life skills, and you don't learn any of these in public schools. You
Right.
only really learn as like some kind of like maybe like survival skills or some shit.
Yes.
Like really, it seems,
And the first rule of survival is don't hang around terrible people like 90% of your time. Like that's a great survival skill to learn.
Yeah, and you can't avoid them. And there's the compulsory aspect of schooling and all this. I mean, I'm sure you know about the Prussian school history and all that stuff, and the history of public schooling. And it's really about obedience and all the structure and all this kind of thing.
Preparing you for a factory.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. But you said you got into film and music. And when were you always into that in elementary school? Were you like sneakily listening to 90s gangsta rap or something like that? Tell me about your musical inspirations and some of your creative and media consumption back in the day.
Sure. Not so much 90s gangster rap, but yeah, there were even Christian bands that I wasn't allowed to listen to because they were too heavy or whatever. For a while, they came around on that eventually, but
is that going to go in your stand-up act? That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to listen to Creed because they didn't call themselves a Christian band. That's the level that we're talking about here.
Wow.
Creed was too edgy for my family, but yeah, which is funny because it was like you couldn't listen. We couldn't listen to anything that wasn't explicitly. It didn't call itself Christian. It had to call itself Christian, and so it's funny to look back on now. And then we've got I don't know if you know the band As I Lay Dying. Do you know them?
No.
Okay, they were just like a metal Christian band back in the day. Fast forward 10, 20 years, whatever we're at now, and that the vocalist for the band was like in prison because he was like roided out of his mind and hired a hitman to murder his wife, like, and he was an atheist and it was just like selling like the Jesus thing the whole time. It's like, so did it really matter if they were calling themselves Christian? Like, they're just people at the end of the day. So yeah, the Christian bands are probably some of the worst ones behind the scenes. Who knows? But yeah, like I wasn't allowed to listen to any secular stuff at all. I would sometimes sneak listen to the radio and things like that to listen to the outside world and what the kids are into these days. But um, yeah, it was a while before they came around to the heavier stuff. But like I said, they did come around on it, and my dad was taking me to shows and festivals by the end of it. So good times.
It's funny you talk about Creed because I remember like, "Can you take me higher?" And people like, and I remember like people saying, they're a religious band. He's talking about Jesus, right?
Of
People we
course.
would like learn that because it was a hit on like popular radio and maybe even rock radio.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's about, but no one really cared.
Yeah.
And people weren't really making fun of Creed at that point yet. That came a little bit later.
Everybody loved Creed. Everybody who hates on Creed now is lying. They not only listened, but they loved Creed back in the day before it was cheesy.
Yeah, no, people didn't hate on it for sure until a little bit later. But Can You Take Me Higher? I could imagine like your parents being like, "This song is about weed. This song is about drugs." But like everyone else is like, who are all the stoners?
Oh, it didn't
like,
matter what it was about. It didn't matter what the message was. It was just they don't call themselves a Christian band, so you cannot listen to them. That was the line.
all the stoners that were like, "Did you know this was really about Jesus? It's not about weed." I can imagine.
Yeah,
That was probably the sentiment. Back in the day. You said you got into like heavier stuff and more secular stuff. What bands did you get into? How old were you? Was more like middle school maybe when your parents eased up, or later?
probably more like high school. But yeah, I got into, I don't know, like, I mean, Tony Hawk Pro Skater. The soundtrack there got me into some Alien Ant Farm and some of the punk stuff. Got into, I don't know, MXPX and Blindside, so, some still Christian names, but fantastic musicians and, from what I can tell, decent people. But I don't know, like POD, Dead Poetic. I don't know if you know any of these bands. Norma Jean.
I know of some of them. They're more like more metal, more. How would you describe the
Yeah,
music?
I mean, I like things all over the map. Typically, I like things that are unique. If it like not doesn't have to be any specific genre, but if it's got a uniqueness to it, that grabs me. That's really all that matters. But yeah, I got into the music, started playing music with some friends locally, and did a couple bands that sucked, and then did finally the band that I still am currently in, or has been revived or whatever. But we formed in high school, and yeah. I don't know how much you want to get into
I
the
want to
music
get
stuff.
into
Or
what's the name? What's the name of that band?
The Dawn Retreat is the band. We just released an album last month, and we're playing a release party in a couple weeks here in the Quad Cities area. So
That's awesome, man. You do a million different things. I'm gonna try to get into a majority of them at the very least. But what is your role in the band?
I am the vocalist in the band and lyricist and all that. In previous bands, I was the drummer because I had drums and nobody else had drums. So I was by default the drummer. But this was the first band that I was vocalist in, and we've been a thing ever since.
And what is it? Was it 4-piece or something like that?
Yeah, it's a 4-piece
With a bass and a guitar player and drums. What are
Yep.
your band members' names?
Travis is the guitar player, Ben is the drummer, and Nathan is the bassist.
And play with these guys back in high school?
Yep.
The same 3 dudes, and now you're back together again all these years later?
Yep. We never officially broke up. We just all had kids and had lives, and it kind of petered out. But yeah, we're bringing it back. We've been writing this album for like, I don't know, 5 years. Like, some of the themes on this album are kind of what I wrote in the anti-religious phase. And so it's not even necessarily stuff that I stand behind now, but I do stand behind that it was true at the time, and it is telling a story of my life in a dark period then that I think people could relate to. So it's weird to put it out now, but yeah, the point being, we've been working on this for a long time. It's not like we hit the studio, recorded an album, now we're playing a show. Like, we just kind of wrote back and forth whenever we had time and felt like it over the course of 5 years. And now we finally got around to releasing it. So it's going to be fun.
That's cool. Are you the biggest? Are you the diva, the diva in the band, or no, the lead
No, that
singer?
would be the drummer, Ben.
Oh, the drum. That's unusual. The drummer's not typically the diva.
He would
It's usually
probably disagree with me, but I'm saying it.
yeah. Well, that's cool. That. Like I keep saying, that's great that you were able to like reunite with these dudes all these years later.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to high school because it sounds like you were not thrilled with your public schooling experience. I mean, but you were obviously playing the music you liked and doing starting to get into some video things. Is that kind of where you thought your future would be, like junior, senior high school? What were you thinking, like major? What were the plans or thoughts at that point?
Oh, we were gonna tour the world and be rock stars, of course. I mean, that's what you do when you're in bands.
At least you're
Um,
honest about saying so.
yeah. No, I mean, we wanted to live the dream. I mean, I got married young and we had kids quickly, and that dream went away really quick once you realize that kids are very expensive and require a lot of your of a time commitment. But it's fine. I'm glad I didn't, because I actually went on to I worked in audio production. I ran studios in the Des Moines area and the Columbus area. And yeah, when I did that, I worked with a lot of bands trying, like, the goal was I would reform their songs and help them make their songs better, and then we would help them find different outlets for touring and promotions and stuff like that. So I got to work and see the behind the scenes of the music industry, and I quickly realized that I was glad that my dream died as quickly as it did, because there's a lot of just bullshit in that side of things when the music becomes a business rather than a passion. And I'm glad that it never got to the point where the music was a business, in that aspect, where you are writing music for the sake of making money and having to stay on deadlines and things. I mean, I would have done it happily, but it would have been a lot of work, and I don't know if it would have been all that it was cracked up to be, and all that the dream was that was sold to us when we were young.
Is there any other like specific examples of like that you saying that like before your eyes, whether about the business or some other aspect of like the music life that you're like, oh man, I don't know if like you're saying, I'm better off going the path I ended up on. Like what did you see like in your experience working in music, audio, and all that?
You mean the downsides of the music
Yeah,
industry?
yeah. What did you see that on something else, maybe on the business side, like an event or some experience where
Just just how
that
much
turned you
it
off?
takes for how little reward. Like, how much, like, the bands that, it was in the MySpace days, so like you could book bands as a band, you could like contact venues pretty easily. This was like the beginning of social media, and it was awesome. It was a good time to get into that sort of thing. But the it all MySpace also created this oversaturation of musicians and artists, and everybody could suddenly everybody could record and put their own stuff out wherever they wanted, which is a great thing. But it also makes the market so heavy with just a whole lot of bullshit. And so I think that the market kind of shifted at that point to more the online stuff, and that's where it started to be less about the live performances for a lot of people. Like, I still love the live performances and think that they're great, but um, where was I going with this? Just the oversaturation of the advent of social media made it so everybody was a rock star, and therefore nobody was a rock star. And all this idea of, like, you get signed, you write your music, and then you go on tour and everything's chip and dandy. I saw how a lot of the label deals work behind the scenes, and it wasn't what everybody had in their mind that it was. It was more of a, you get a bank loan from a company that believes in your artistic vision, but they also have a say now in your artistic vision, and you have to go out and hustle to pay them back for your artistic vision that somebody else has already changed in a lot of ways. Like, there's just a lot of compromise, I feel like, in the music industry that you don't think about as a child growing up. And it's for somebody, but I don't know if it would have been for me, even if it had, gone in that direction. So it's all good.
Yeah, I suppose though a lot has changed in the whole way we create and consume music since then, as evidenced by like the fact that you and your group, your band has been able to get back together and create music, and you've been able to still create music over the years. It's just everything is just so like, yeah, like you said, decentralized, oversaturated. Everyone, has the access. There's more access, I guess.
Right. Yeah, like back in the day, there was the radio, and you worked with, like, the label could help you get on the radio, and that was a big deal. But once the internet came along, who cares about the radio? You can go to the band's MySpace page and listen to their song as many times as you want, not have to call in, not have to wait around all day to listen to that one song from that new band or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's great, but it also, yeah, it made the if you were a really talented band, you were competing with a lot more really talented bands and really untalented bands. It was just harder to get any traction, get any attention or anything. So
Yeah, I hear you. Did you go to college? Did you just continue working, playing music? What's going on in your late teens, early 20s?
I went to college very briefly, right out of high school, for like a semester and a half. Learned nothing, felt like it was worthless. Had to get a job to raise a family, and did that, and worked a machine shop job, worked couple different jobs like guitar centers, and I don't know. I worked at Aeropostale or Aeropostale, I believe is how they officially pronounce it.
I can hear it correctly in my head. Aeropostale.
Yes, worked there for a couple months. Like, I worked a bunch of little bullshit jobs here and there, but yeah. Then I started doing the music production stuff because my band was working with a company that was producing us, and when that started to die out a little bit, when our band started to get a little less active, they brought me on as a design guy, then as an audio guy, and then yeah. After that, I moved back to Illinois, and the idea was that I was going to get my CDL and become a trucker. And I got my CDL, and then I was a trucker for a couple months, and then I wanted to kill myself, so I decided to go a different route and went back to the machine shop job, and then eventually parlayed that into a video production business somehow. That is what I've been doing for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years.
I think that's cool that you did all these different things. Like, even like the trucking thing obviously jumps out at me, and there's almost like a humorous element just
Oh,
the
yes.
way you're telling that story. But just the fact that you're willing to try things and go outside of the box, and I'm guessing, of course, do whatever you can to take care of your family. And I could see the appeal of trucking.
Mhm.
There's like a union and benefits, and it's always going to be work as long as the government doesn't get in the way of that. Like,
Or the robots.
yeah, the robots. That's true. Well, then you just got to build the robots. I guess.
Mhm.
Um, how old were you when you tried trucking or?
It's a good question. It would have been, what would it have been? Late 20s, somewhere in there. I don't know. Time is irrelevant once you get past a certain age.
I
So,
think that there's quite a bit of truth in there, for sure. So you got your CDL, and that involves like a driving test, I assume.
yeah. Yeah, it was intense, but there were 3 people in my class. We did a little crash course on how to get your CDL, and there were 3 people in the class, and I was the only person who passed the test on the first try, and I was the first person to stop trucking, and it was pretty immediate. I was just like, "Well, I got it, and I paid for it," and because these other people, a lot of times what this business will do is, you don't have to pay. Like, you can take the course, you can do the course for free if you sign a contract with a trucking company that you'll work with them right after you pass your test. So you have a guaranteed job, but you have to stay at that job for 6 months and agree to do it. So they own you at that point. It's like basically indentured servitude. That well, not I mean not really,
It's like the music industry.
but yes, it's like, yeah, they own you for a certain period of time. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not committing to that. So I scrounged up. We were very poor at the time, and I scrounged up enough to pay for it, and then went through it. I was like, I don't know. It was a few months in, and everybody that I worked under, everybody that I worked with or talked to or anything, all the instructors, I would always ask them one question: do you like your job? And every single one of them, without fail, said, "Fuck no." I'm like, oh, I'm still pretty young. I mean, it might be a little early in my life to sign up for a fuck no job, just on the basis of, yay, I'll get money, and hate my life. Because, I mean, the money was very good, but the hours were just dog shit. And yeah, it was It was dumb. And at that point, I had worked in the music industry long enough to be used to working off of very little money and doing things like focusing more on the passion and things that I enjoy more than just everything being about making more money. So I'm like, yes, I would make substantially more money. Even now, it would make substantially more money trucking. Not interested. You can have your money. I'm good.
Damn. Is it possible to do that job without amphetamines?
I couldn't tell you. I didn't stick around long enough, but I would imagine not.
Yeah, no, it's a tough, but that's who. It's an important job, obviously,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So I have couple, maybe one more about the trucking, but so you 18 wheelers, is that what we were dealing with, the
Yep.
big ones?
Yep.
And
Something like that.
you had zero experience driving an 18 wheeler, and
I
then
had
you
zero
started.
experience driving a stick shift at that point, and I'm just jumping into it like, all right, let's fucking go. Like I got a little bit of experience because my father-in-law at the time was a trucker, and the idea was for me to work for him afterward. So he gave me a little bit of crash stuff before going into this course, and then there was this course for like I don't know 3 or 6 months or something. It's really just give you the basic crunch to get you out the door and passing the test, and it's quite terrifying knowing how things work in the trucking industry because it's like so all you're doing is getting people just the bare minimum to pass the test and then launching them out on the interstate behind a 10-ton freaking weapon and just saying, all right, you're good enough. Like I have a class A CDL currently. I could legally drive a truck. And even as a libertarian, I'm like, I don't know if I should be allowed to drive that truck because I don't think I could, but I'm allowed to now. And that's mostly a joke because fuck the government, but it is what it is.
You know what I think? I think that truckers drive so much, so they get good at it fast. So it's like you're out there, you're getting plenty of practice. So you're probably gonna, if you're terrible at it, you're gonna be competent by the end of the first trip.
Yeah, just got
Figure it out.
Just got to run over 3 or 4 people, then you'll get the hang of it.
That don't happen all that much. Where are we? You're so early 30s. We got out of the trucking thing, and where did we go from there again? I think you mentioned one or two more.
Yeah, I went back to the same machine shop that I worked at. It was the same place my dad. It's like the local mill, basically, or the local mines. Like
did you go
it's
back
the place
in time?
that everybody goes.
Did you go
yes.
back in time at this point in your life?
Pretty much. Yeah, I went back to the same place that my dad has been working this whole time and still works there. But I worked there after high school and then went back there because it was an easy in and decent money enough to get us back on our feet. But yeah, I worked there for a couple of years and then started doing the video stuff on the side. I'd been doing video since high school, just kind of taught myself out of in high school out of necessity because I was in these bands and I wanted to make music videos for myself. So I figured out how to do video for myself and then did some music videos for other local bands and friend bands and things like that. And just kept teaching myself over and over the years and eventually got to the point where begrudgingly I got into the wedding video business. And I was like, wow, there's actually an opportunity here because it's an untapped market. And like at the time, wedding video in like just in general wasn't even that big of a thing. I didn't even know what wedding videos were. I assumed it was like you have a camera set up in the back of the room and it's like the old like like old school shots. I didn't realize that wedding videos aren't just capture everything. They're actually like shorter, basically like a music video of the day. You're doing a recap highlight much of the time. So there's a lot more artistic creativity in it than I had once believed. So I've kind of, I don't know. I feel like I've kind of carved out my own space in that because I have like almost literally no competition in that space around here because almost nobody's doing it. Not only that, but I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get real artsy fartsy with it and make it something that I enjoy making. And people seem to enjoy that. So it's worked out nicely to my benefit there.
When I'm jumping ahead, but what you moved back. You said you moved back to Illinois. Were you in state of Washington, or did I make that up?
You made that up.
I made that. Where were you before you lived in your current town?
Lived in Des Moines, Iowa for a couple years, then lived in Columbus, Ohio for a couple years, and then moved back.
Okay, and those are all within like 3, 4 5 hours or something like that from where
Columbus
you're
is about
currently?
8 or 9 hours from here.
Yeah. I don't have the map correctly in
It's
my
all good.
head. Yeah. Okay, that's cool that you get into all these different things.
hmm
Um, tell me where. So you're in your. So where do we go from there?
Um, from there, from starting the video production business, it's just been keep going, keep doing it, and it's kind of evolved on its own. It's still wedding video stuff, but I've kind of reformatted how I do things and figured things out as I went. Like there was no class or anything that I mean, I'm sure there were classes on this type of thing, but there was nobody around here that I knew that was doing it or anything. So I just hopped on YouTube and learned whatever I could, and still do. Like keep trying to be better, keep working the way up, and I eventually got into the political side of things just because of my interest in politics that formed somewhere around 2016, and yeah, started lending my services to some of the I don't know the junk drawer of politics, the Libertarian Party people, because I enjoyed their weird sense of not no fucks given, and that's like I never got into political videos for like I never intended to do political videos at all. I got into them because I was like, I'm into the politics stuff, and Vermin Supreme needs a video guy, and that sounds fun. Like I didn't care about the political side. I'm still kind of that mindset. I'm more for the message and the art that I can lend to the best message possible. So like now I'm working with multiple candidates, and I'm not exclusive. I'm like I will give it my all for whoever wants to hire me, especially if you've got a good message. I will put my spin on it and make it as good as I can, because I'm here for the sake of, I mean, obviously I'm here to make money and support my family, but I'm here for the thing that drives me is the art and the passion and the message of the whole thing. So wherever that leads, we shall go.
Yeah, man, you are one of the most important people in the party, in the movement, in the Mises Caucus, and all this stuff. Like you're creating as like you've called it propaganda, but I would call it like righteous propaganda,
Sure.
virtuous propaganda, the correct propaganda, propaganda that takes the correct positions,
I mean the
propaganda
the
that
word
cares about humanity.
the word propaganda and the word manipulation, like these words get a bad rap, but if the entire country is literally brainwashed, as I believe they are, like propaganda and manipulation are really all about how you use them. Are you using them for good, or are you using them for evil? Because if everybody is in living in this brainwashed, dumbed down bubble of the matrix of the internet and politics and the divide and conquer psyop bullshit that the government is pushing on us, the only way to wake them up is by propagandizing them to some degree. It is just convincing somebody that you are correct. That's all manipulation is pushing somebody toward a it can be a truth or a lie that you want them to believe. I think it's a truth that we're pushing them toward, but we have to work a little bit psychologically and use the same tools that the system uses the system uses these tools to manipulate people. The power of video, of lights, sounds, of flashing lights, of catchy quips and stuff like that. Like film is the main propaganda tool because it utilizes all the sights, the sounds, and everything, but like taste and smell. But um, yeah, I think I think the most important thing that libertarians can do is lean more into being more propagandistic, but in a real authentic way, like pushing people toward actual truth instead of just propagandizing like the libertarian message, sure, but the reality of what is true and good in the world. And yeah, right now it's the libertarian message for me.
That's well said. I thought I remember you like kind of doing work for maybe Lions of Liberty, the podcast, even
Yep.
before 2016, or did am I imagining that? I feel like I remember seeing you here in a view or your work before then even.
It might have been. It probably would have been around then. I think it was shortly before the 2016 elections. Probably like when Trump entered the race. I was like, okay, let's see what's going on. Let's pay some attention here, and he got me intrigued. And then I started paying attention. And then I was obviously raised like very Republican, because Christians are Republican or something. Um, And when Trump came in, I was like, okay, I'll pay attention. And then I was like, nope, not a Republican. And then I looked at the Democrats and I was like, oh, I'm definitely not that either. Like my parents probably would have assumed that I leaned more like, I don't know, more liberal as a child because I was the only one that was like, hey, this war thing doesn't add up. Like, yes, we're against abortion and all that, but we're really pro-war here. That doesn't really make sense to me. And so they probably thought I was a little bit more lefty. But yeah, then the Democrats were just a nightmare at that point. And I ended up falling into, I don't know, like the debates between Austin Peterson, Gary Johnson, John McAfee, and I'm like, oh, these people are fucking crazy. Let's go. Like that, these are my people. Like they're speaking.
I was like, I was
In a
gonna be like,
good way.
oh,
I love fucking crazy. That's what I'm here for, is the crazy. Like these people are
it's
just
entertaining.
very dryly, what I would say now, pretty autistically, just being honest in a good weaponized way for the most part. And just the debates and the conversations and everything really intrigued me because it was intellectually honest more so than any of the other parties were. Even if there was some stupid things or some disagreements or whatever, like it all felt infinitely more intellectually honest than any of the other parties. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And we had Daryl Perry like screaming about toasting your damn toaster on the stage. And I was like, yes, these guys they're very passionate about this thing. And I want to know more about these crazy people. And the rest is history. But yes, Lions of Liberty came sometime around leading up to that election. And I started listening there. There were some of the ones that brought me into the libertarian stuff because I was, searching for libertarian podcasts, found them, started listening to them, and a few others, and started doing, like, I was in their podcast groups on Facebook and things like that, and I would just basically make memes and make art. I don't even know if they were called memes yet, but making little funny things that had to do with the show. And they eventually brought me in to do their like their logo designs and their shirt designs and things like that. They brought me out to PorkFest to film their first year there. And yeah, things have been all over the place and worked with a lot of people, and it's been fun. It's been fun to carve out another niche market where I'm not here to be the political ads guy. I'm here to be the spicy propaganda guy, and if that just happens to work well with your campaign and the stars align, I'm happy to work with anybody. Worked on Joe Jorgensen's campaign, didn't vote for her, but I worked on her campaign, did all her videos and everything, because I'm like, I get to work on a national stage and push not even really Joe's message. Yes, it is Joe's message, but more my message that I'm trickling into these videos and putting that out on somebody else's platform. And to me, that's good. That's good enough.
This is a random question, but do you ever teach editing or how to make propaganda or any of these things? Have you taken on any of those types of jobs or gigs? Because I feel like there's probably a market for that, or even for kids in your community or something like that.
I haven't. I've had a lot of people ask me, but my problem is that I don't know how to teach autism. It's very difficult.
Teach to those with.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like to do it, like I don't really know. I don't do things the right way because I taught myself. Like I don't do things
I see.
Even in any particular way. I could probably give I've brought up something. I've given some like speeches and stuff at like PorkFest and some of the libertarian conventions and things, and I'll say like a little bit of my process, but I don't usually get that deep into it. I don't know. If anybody was interested, I've had people reach out and ask for tips and stuff. I'm happy to, give input if people are looking for a second opinion or whatever. But as far as teaching, I just don't know. I don't have the time mostly, but I also am not what most would call a teacher. I'm just kind of making shit up as I go and seeing what feels right and going with the flow. And yeah, happy to answer questions, but I don't know if I could make too good of a course on it. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe someday if the demand is high enough.
Yeah, I got you. So this whole like political awakening, red pilling, reasons for joining the Libertarian Party and all this stuff is basically because of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Is that what I got out of it? Do I have that correct?
I have said many times, Donald Trump is the reason I'm a libertarian. Just because, I mean, I would say I was already a libertarian because I had probably sometime around the 2012 election. I wasn't really paying attention but I do vividly remember having on my laptop at the time a Ron Paul 2012 sticker, and I didn't know anything about libertarianism, didn't know anything about, that he came from that. I just knew, I can only imagine. I don't even remember where it came from or where I got it, but I can only imagine that it was probably just because I heard a Republican that was anti-war at the time, because I was pretty anti-war, and this was like, Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that shit. But um, so yeah, I was probably pretty libertarian for a long time, because I was like, yeah, a lot of this Republican shit's bullshit. But yes, I have credited Donald Trump with me being a libertarian, just in that I didn't pay attention at all. I voted R because that's what I was supposed to do up until Donald Trump came in, and then I was like, it wasn't like he pushed me away from Republicans. Even he like, I was intrigued. I was like, oh, let's watch this shit show. I wasn't necessarily that much of a fan, but I was like, oh, this is entertaining, so now I'm going to pay attention. And clearly, I mean, that's how it worked for 90% of the population at that point. Like, everybody started paying attention. Now suddenly politics are entertainment, and entertainment is politics, and we can't even go to a Hollywood movie without having to hear about somebody's politics. But yes, Donald Trump broke the fucking thing, but it made me pay attention. And if nothing else, it made me realize that I wasn't a Republican, because once I started paying attention, I was like, oh, these Republicans are kind of just full of shit. They're just really full of shit, and everybody else is too, except for maybe one or two libertarians.
I always try to tell people, because there's what, 400, was there 535, whatever people in Congress total, in the House and the Senate. And I try to explain something like that, but I try to explain to others, 95% of these people are awful. They're like really terrible people. They're like
that's probably being pretty generous too.
Probably, yeah. They you've seen the NASCAR like suits. If politicians really showed who they represented, they
Right.
should have to wear the NASCAR suits with all the corporations and the special interests. But yeah, they're all terrible people. Who are your favorite people that you've either worked with or encountered in the movement? And maybe before we get to that, I'll let you kind of maybe tell the timeline of like how the system is down, and your podcast, and how that all came to be, and other projects along the way, and you can kind of catch me up.
We made it 50 minutes into a libertarian podcast without talking about the other libertarians podcast. That's impressive.
I didn't stop you from plugging anything.
Yeah, no.
But we covered some topics that are adjacent to it.
Sure. Yes. No, I started the podcast somewhere around the 2016-ish era, or somewhere in there. Once I started paying attention to the politics, I was like, I would get together with friends and have some drinks, and we would always end up talking about either politics, conspiracies, or like religious theology, just having the uncomfortable conversations, the things that are supposed to be taboo to talk about. My personality is just like, I don't know, like, I want to talk about the least comfortable shit and go there because it's fun. I don't take offense to somebody disagreeing with me. I am finding, as time goes on and life goes on and madness goes on, that a lot of people don't agree with that. They need to have only the conversations that are pre-approved. And so I started the podcast basically around that, around the idea of having conversations with people about just the uncomfortable topics, and doing so calmly and civilly and just humorously. And it started as a roundtable conversation, like what our drinking chats were, and that lasted for about 2 episodes before like just getting people's schedules together didn't work out, because there was 4 of us in the early 2 episodes. And some of those guys would all of them came back at least once or twice over the years. We did some kind of reunion shows, but it was my thing. So I quickly, like, after realizing that scheduling wasn't going to work out, I turned it into more of like the interview style. And then I did interview shows for several years. And within the last couple years, I switched to more of a like covering the news and just making jokes about the news and shit that's going on, more news commentary and that type of thing. Very trendy, very cool. Recently it's more just I'm doing it when it feels right. I've got a lot of like, this is the first time since I started the podcast that I'm kind of taking a break, and it's kind of a soft break. It's not really a break, because if something comes up, I'm still doing them, but I'm not sticking to a hard, strict schedule, because I've got life and a whole lot of things that need to get done. And just got to a point where I was pondering, what value am I bringing exactly? There's entertainment value certainly, but uh, is is being spicy on the internet and sharing my opinions, is it more of a detriment to um I don't know, is it adding more to the world than it is taking away from it? Is it being more divisive or being more helpful? And is it being like, if the world keeps getting crazier and people keep getting more woke and retarded, is it going to make my kids' lives better or worse in the future if I keep, painting targets on my back or targets on other people's backs just for the sake of, making some dumb jokes on the internet? I don't know. It's still something that I'm working through, but right now I'm just kind of like, if it's right, I'll do it, and if it's not, I'm not going to force it. But yeah, just seeing where things go, making some political ads.
Yeah, well, I definitely think there's a place for your voice and a need for your voice, and I think a demand for your voice, and I'm always looking forward to more episodes, be it solo shows covering the news, interviews, the panels, all that stuff. I eat up content,
Yeah,
especially
yeah, it's
no, man,
fun.
you have an important voice, dude. I mean, fucking all you like the same attitude that you have, taking when you doing someone else's political ads or whatever. You put your own voice and your heart and your beliefs into it. Why is that? Why is that appropriate to do? In that, not appropriate's not the right word, but why are you like okay with doing that? But like when it's your own content, I'm telling you all the things that I probably should be telling myself and be working through. But nevertheless, man, I'm want
Why
to
is
be
it easier to
encouraging.
make political ads than it is to do a podcast? Or like,
No, just or like why is it like you're questioning your place in the world and you're having all
yeah,
these like what do you call it? What's that word? Um Existential questions
yeah,
related to the podcast, but when you're doing someone else's political ads, you're like, nah, I just put my own voice into it and make it,
sure,
put my
yeah,
heart and stuff.
yeah. Well, the thing is, like, for one thing, it's easier to go harder in a video that, like, if a stranger
You're
stumbles
not in.
yes, if a stranger stumbles across a video that I made that goes hard, they're going to be mad at the politician that allowed me to do that with their video. They're not going to go looking to see who made the video or assume that the video guy came up with the message even necessarily. And not every message that is in each video. I'm not saying that, I don't know, like, there are some things that I will put in a video because it means something to the person that I'm making the video for. I'm not like going against principles of my own or anything. Not that I wouldn't. I'm a whore. I'm not cheap, but I'm a whore. Like, if Bernie Sanders wants me to make his message, I'll make his message, I suppose. But he's gonna like pay me at least quadruple what any libertarian's gonna be paying me. But I digress. It is, yeah, it's easier to be the, as many have called me, the libertarian shadow government or the libertarian Illuminati, the guy who works behind the scenes and pushes other people to be the face. I don't have to be the face. I don't mind being the face until it's like, I don't know, not like just when it gets hard, but like, I don't know. The existential crisis part is more like, if I'm going to devote this much of my life, a weekly time slot, like the weeks that I do, or on the day that I do a podcast, I pretty much devote the entire day to researching for the podcast and getting stuff ready for the podcast, setting it up, doing all this. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time and effort. And is the payoff really there? So even just from a dry logical standpoint, like from a business standpoint, is it bringing in as much as it is worth or what have you? But I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm open to being wrong about anything. I'm just like trying to humbly step back and be like, I don't have to just do this thing because I've been doing this thing for so long that I can't stop doing this thing. I'll take a break, see where it goes, see what comes up, and hey, if I feel led to kick it back in full force and double down, then so be it. But yeah, I'm open to whatever happens, wherever God leads
I
me,
got
as some might say.
Yeah, I got you. It's not just that you're like, oh, I don't know if I want you. That's not just a question of your view, and your place in the world, and all that kind of thing. There's just time, how many hours in a day, and what's the best way to
Right.
manage your time. Who are some of your favorite people to work with, or who's inspired you the most in this movement? Is it like a Ron Paul? Is it someone you know did work and did film work with or something like that, or a friend or someone who, I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's a lot. I would say first and foremost, as far as I I like to give most of my inspiration credit to Judd Weiss. Actually, do you remember Judd?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was McAfee's running mate. Do you remember the videos that he put out for McAfee's campaign?
I do.
Yeah, that like blew my mind. So, as the story
Really?
goes, yeah, as the story goes, I was getting interested in the libertarian stuff and getting involved in just basically paying attention to what was going on. And I saw Judd. That Judd was I don't know. Somebody tagged me in something that Judd posted. So Judd's the VP nominee with John McAfee, and I mean, to me at the time, before I was like as entrenched in all this stuff as I am now, I'm like, oh, that's a big fucking deal. This guy's he's a huge name or whatever. Whatever. It's a libertarian, but somebody tagged me in it, and they're like, oh, Dan does video, because Judd was asking, does anybody do video? And I was like, sure. So I talked to him briefly at the time, and he's like, well, I'm not really looking for a political ad. I'm looking for something that we've never seen before. I'm like, okay, well, I'm down, but I don't really know what that means, because it's a very nebulous, abstract concept that you've just presented. And so I didn't get hired by Judd, and I'm glad that I didn't, because what Judd did with those videos was show me that there is no fucking rule book to political ads. If I jumped in to a John McAfee ad trying to create what Judd Weiss had in his head, it would have been not what those videos were, which those videos, I mean, Judd Weiss, or John McAfee obviously did not become the nominee, did not become president. So you could say those political ads, they failed or whatever, but it's like, well, they inspired me, and they stick with me to this day as something, just thinking so outside the box and having fun with it, which is what I got into it for, like with the Vermin Supreme team and all that. I was just having fun and making some crazy, awesome art and stuff that pushes the message. If Judd hadn't done that, I wouldn't have seen that you can do that in that direction. So I wouldn't have gotten into the Vermin Supreme stuff. I wouldn't have felt like I had license to do what I knew should be done, because I would have been thinking too much about what is supposed to be done, what the box says that you can do in this field, rather than just doing what is inside you that you can lend to that thing, which is what Judd did. He wasn't a video guy. He was a photographer, but he learned how to do video just enough to make these 4 amazing ads that woke me up to this concept, and I've kind of ran with it. So I give him a whole lot of credit there, as far as inspiration and the thing that I kind of enjoy doing most now, in that area. And obviously inspirations as far as podcasting, lots of shout outs to Lions of Liberty guys, because they, like Mark Claire, gave me a lot of tips in the early years of the podcast, and gave
what did he tell you?
Oh hell, I don't remember.
Yeah,
Be consistent.
Yeah, it's nothing specific. I got you.
Yeah, I mean, even just like giving me tips on
Name 10 things now.
What gear to use and shit like that. Stuff that you don't know till you know, or like what like hosting platforms and things like that. And they also, when I was doing video for them at PorkFest, is when he started doing. He was like, I'm just gonna go interview this random guy, like Jeffrey Tucker's over there. Let's go interview him. Or Vermin Supreme's over there. Let's go interview him. And we would just run over and grab it, like man on the street shit. I don't know if I would have felt like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have felt comfortable doing that had I not seen him just be like, fuck it, let's do it, whatever. So I've done that at a lot of the libertarian events. That's been a kind of thing that I do at all the events that I go to, and form it into a podcast and things. And I don't know if I would have had the balls to do it if I didn't see Mark just be like, yeah, it's fine. Just walk up to these people and shove a mic in their face and say, hey, I want to interview you for a minute. And yeah, it's something that's a lot of fun that you don't see a lot of libertarians doing, like people with libertarian podcasts and things. It kind of surprises me. Like, everybody has a phone. Everybody can get a little mic for their phone. And when you're in the area of somebody who's of importance, seize the moment, take advantage of it, take a 2-minute clip with a person and put it up on the internet. It's just like common sense little things that it seems like a lot of people don't think about. So yeah, lots of what do you call them, inspirations in the liberty movement, and I could talk for days on different ones that inspired me in different areas. But yeah, I would say Judd's a big one, and Mark Claire's a pretty big one too. So
Who else? Who else lately have you been connecting with or working with?
I've been like I did
That
Josh
you can
Smith.
talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I can talk about whatever, but yeah. I mean, I have a lot of different clients. Josh Smith, I just did a video for him. In talks with Mike Tremont, that might be happening. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, and some of these candidates, I'm like, if it works out, it does. Like, that's great, but I'm not like begging for work or anything. I've got a mountain of work right now. So there's some candidates that I'm like, if you want to do this, if you can afford it, then I will, lend my services to anybody. But if you can't, then so be it. But Mike Tremont is potential. I don't know if that one's going to work out, and I'm kind of okay with it because I don't necessarily want him to be the candidate. So I don't necessarily want to help him become the candidate. So
you're thinking it through right now. I appreciate that.
There's layers to it, but yeah, I don't know. Like I'm actually pushing for my main goal, my white whale right now is Joe Exotic. If I can get to Joe Exotic to hire me for his campaign ads, I'm down. I'm down for the shit show and all the chaos and madness that would come from that. And everybody knows that he should hire me, and it would be a beautiful thing.
I support you, but I'm not sure I support this specifically. But what you can do is and this might end up happening. You'll make all these ads for all these different libertarian 2024 candidates, and they could all you'll be paid for all of them, obviously, but they could be responding to each other. Your Joe Exotic ad. This person is such an asshole. You can't vote for them because
I don't know if I would.
Person. And then you make the ad for the other person that says, the other person's the asshole. Politics.
In working, like, in being non-exclusive with these things, I've had to think about, like, if it came down to it, where are my lines? Because right now I'm kind of like, I don't know, if one of them was like, yeah, I want you to make an attack ad and smear my like whatever, my competition. I don't know. Like, I'm down to smear Republicans, Democrats, whatever, but smearing in even in the libertarian primary or whatever we call it, I don't love the idea of making attack ads against each other and being the middleman, because to me that's dishonest and it's politics, and it's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for the politics. If your politics running can utilize my passion and the stuff that I bring to the table, then so be it. But I don't know, maybe there'll be a pay increase if you're wanting me to mudsling for you, because I'm not really into that shit.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help you make money. I'm just trying to think outside the box here.
I'm just trying to make libertarians suck less, and if I can make some money in the process, then
it's a good
great.
slogan.
Yes.
It's a pretty good slogan. What does your band think of of your political involvement, your your different interests and your podcasts and your worldviews and stuff? What, are they all on board with this stuff, or they have their own thing going on? They just have families and normal lives?
I mean, no, I vehemently, well, not vehemently, whatever. We disagree heavily on politics between me and a couple of the band members, and it's been a bit of an issue recently, actually, because of some things that have happened that I don't want to get too deep into. But all in all, like, the podcast formed during a break in the band, and it's become a spicy thing that they did not sign up for. So it's kind of a weird area where I'm like we're bros. Like, my best friend is, I think he would call himself a socialist, and yeah, we're good, except for, like, we disagree heavily on these things. The only time it will become an issue is if hypothetically people on the internet try and cancel our shows because of some of my political takes, and then people who I love, who disagree with me on politics, are in a position where they have to defend this thing that they didn't sign up for, like the libertarian stuff. They didn't sign up for any of that. The band was first, and then the politics came in the break, and now they're kind of like lumped into that by default. But we're all humans, and we work together and mostly leave the politics out of it. I can have the conversations with them about it, but it's not like the band's not like a political act or anything. We're not like writing songs about, I mean, the most political that we would be is like, the system fucking sucks, and we all certainly agree on that. But like, yeah, as far as like getting into the we're definitely not like a libertarian band or anything like that, like talking about that shit. But yeah, they know pretty much where I stand on things, and we're cool. It's all good.
That's good. I can see that definitely being challenging. Is that you got a Republican in the band too, just so you cover all your get
Not
everyone in
really.
there?
Not really. I mean, I don't even want to label what they believe. I would say they're probably more left. Two of them are more left leaning than I am, but I mean they're reasonable people. And the other one is kind of in a, I wouldn't say in agreement with me on anything. He mostly just doesn't care. He's mostly agnostically, like, doesn't give a shit, but he's more able to be swayed into my views. I don't know if he agrees with me more or if he's just like you know, doesn't care so much that he's like, "Can we, yeah, sure, let's not talk about it anymore. I don't care." But he doesn't care. It's fine.
There used to be a time when everything wasn't political.
Yeah.
But maybe that in some regards, like if you just want to, if we can just look at it positive, maybe that's a good thing because like you weren't paying attention to politics and then you were, and
Yeah.
then I was not paying as much attention and then I started to, and then like that leads to changing our views and then maybe even changing our actions and then taking some actions, whether they be making videos or tweeting or having conversations on a podcast, doing, at least something to kind of make the world a better place. And I was glancing at your website and you kind of like even summarize some of this stuff about just like, you're kind of like, you care about humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So weird.
Yes, it is rare to find these days. And yeah,
yeah, go on.
With you were talking about the politics being in everything, and it's like it has its ups and its downs. Like I'd say at this point, it's gotten to the point where it's so ridiculously stupid that it has more downs than ups. But like I said earlier, like Donald Trump, I think is the reason why everybody started paying attention, and it's good for people to pay attention and know what's going on. It's bad for people to pay attention and only eat up the mainstream narrative because all they're doing is paying attention but not digging anywhere beneath the surface. Right now, they're paying attention and all they're getting is the mainstream media dump. Like for the casual viewer, that's what they're getting. And now we have more people paying attention and voting with terrible opinions. So it has its negatives, but at least more people are like with Barack Obama, we didn't know that, like the casual viewer didn't know that Barack Obama was like blowing up brown kids and American citizens and stuff like that. We didn't know because we weren't paying attention. But now, if like Donald Trump did that, everybody would be talking about it. So at the very least, he made people go, "Oh, like if something comes up, we're gonna pay attention at some point." But yeah, I don't know which is better.
Nah, man, that's the only thing that people liked about the left liked about Donald Trump is murdering brown children overseas
Right.
or bombing something. That's what they said when he bombed Iran or something. They're like, that dude's presidential now. Donald Trump is
Yep.
finally a president. And then the next day they wanted to get rid of him again.
Yeah, it's the one thing
but for that
Democrats and
one day,
Republicans can agree on is bombing brown people.
right. I'm gonna get you out of here soon because I know we've been talking over an hour and 10 now and all that. Ghosts and aliens. Do we believe in both of those? Any experiences with either?
I don't think
Personally?
there's. I don't. Probably neither. Probably neither.
Really, you don't believe in any of these things, Mr. Conspiracy Podcast, who willing to have any of these conversations and believes in lots of other stuff that we didn't even dive into, but like the ghosts and aliens, what is the?
Well, here's the thing. It's not that I don't believe in them because I'm not open-minded enough. It's that my mind got so opened that I got to a point where I'm like, the aliens thing. Yeah, I was a huge proponent, like hugely into aliens, especially as a kid. I'm like, yes, that movie Contact with what's her face in it. I don't remember. Where she says the line of like, if there's nothing else out there, that would be a gigantic waste of space or something like that. I'm like, yeah, that's based, whatever. And then as I grew up, I got more open-minded and I got to the point where I was like, well, what if the earth is flat and there's a dome over it and the aliens are all a propagation of the government to convince us that the earth is actually this stupid ball that's floating around in space? I'm not saying I think the earth is flat. I'm saying that I've done some digging into it and I believe that there's certainly a possibility of life outside of this and outside of our own understanding, whether that's other just sentient beings that are like us or similar to us. I don't know. I think that the universe is smaller than we believe it is, and I think that we have more significance than we give ourselves credit for. And I don't think that's an accident. I think that aliens ghosts, demons, whatever. There's things beyond our understanding. Certainly, there's entities beyond our understanding. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. Whether it's good or bad. I mean, it could be angels and demons. It could be good aliens, bad aliens. Could be happy ghosts and angry ghosts. Like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like, there are things beyond our understanding, and I'm interested in all of them. And if somebody has compelling evidence for any of them, I'm all for it. And I do enjoy a good, ghost hunting video expedition with Remzo Martinez or what have you. He believes in them a lot more than I do, but I don't know. Just because you found something doesn't mean that doesn't mean that it is demonic, doesn't mean that it's not demonic, doesn't mean that it is like your dead relative just because it says it is, doesn't mean that it's nice just because it says it is. I don't know. But I do know that we don't know more than we do know in life. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing to come to terms with. Just understanding, humbling yourself enough to know that you don't understand as much as you think you do. And that's good, because that means you have a lot to learn. But also you have more significance than you are told that you have. And you should keep pursuing what you were created and designed for, and what your passion is in life, because I think that is the only way to find any truth and unlock the power of just humanity at large and goodness in the world. And yeah, if we're wrapping up, it seems like a good place.
Dude, I love that. You speak in audio clips, you speak in introduction clips, you speak in. I heard the music while you were speaking. I was like, "This dude, are you trying to
I'm a
fire me up,
propagandist,
right?"
man.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, keep leaning into that. Thank you for the time. I appreciate anything else we need to cover. You wanted to mention? Think we forgot. Otherwise, definitely plug whatever you want to plug away. And yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, glad we finally wrapped it up, or not wrapped it up. I'm not glad that we're to the end. I'm glad that we finally did this thing that we just did.
I know what you meant.
But yeah, you can find me at the systemisdown.tv for the podcast, or at TSIDpod on Twitter. Those are the two main things for the show. You can find my video production stuff at goulashfilms.com or goulashmedia.net. Yes, goulash as in the dish, Goulash. I don't know why. It's stupid, but people don't forget it. So those are the places you can find me, and or just Google search me and find out all the controversial things that I say. Just
cool,
like everybody else.
You.
Just don't cancel me.
No, we won't. I was going to say, cool. Thank you again. I appreciate the time, the stories, all that stuff. Inspirational all around. Looking forward to more content, more stuff from you soon.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. Episode 144 with Dan Smotz. That was a lot of fun and was a long time coming as well. Dan is a very important voice and creator in the political world and beyond. And I, again, appreciate his time. Anyway, for everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com, at People We Love Podcast on Instagram. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to follow me, adamchoit.com for all my personal stuff, filmmaking, social media, comedy show tickets, all that good stuff is on there, adamchoit.com. But I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you as always. And let's talk soon. Peace.